They say loneliness is just a feeling, but in reality, it rewires the brain, shortens life, and quietly becomes more lethal than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. In the next decade, experts predict that over 30% of adults over 65 will live completely alone, with no regular human contact for weeks, sometimes months. Their phones stay silent. Their homes quieter than graveyards. Anxiety grows where conversation used to be. And what's worse, we designed the world to forget them, not by cruelty, but by distraction. Today, we'll uncover what isolation really does to the aging mind, why it leads to mental collapse, heart failure, and even hallucinations. And the most uncomfortable question, have we already abandoned our future selves? This is not just a story. This is a warning. Hit like, subscribe, and let's go. In today's world, we're more connected than ever. With a single swipe, a voice can echo across continents. Messages fly, calls buzz, lives unfold in real time. But for millions of older adults, that noise never reaches them. Despite the rise of smart homes, wearable health trackers, and AI companions promising to solve aging, the reality is far colder. Over 27 million seniors in the U.S. live in quiet isolation. And the number is rising, not because of choice, but because of systems that were never designed to include them. Cities grow faster, families move farther, and neighbors barely know each other's names. Retirement homes are filled with silence disguised as care. In the 1960s, it was common for multiple generations to live under one roof. Today, it's considered unusual. The nuclear family took over, independence became sacred, and the cost was invisible disconnection. Studies show that loneliness among seniors increases the risk of dementia by up to 50%. It leads to faster cognitive decline, a weaker immune system, and a much higher chance of premature death. And yet, we treat it like a minor inconvenience. A bad mood, something a walk in the park or a call from a volunteer can fix. But the science says otherwise. Chronic loneliness triggers the same brain patterns as physical pain. The body reacts with stress, inflammation, and eventually surrender. We live in an age of innovation, but somehow we've let an entire generation fade into the background, quietly, without protest, without notice. And the question is, how long until that becomes us? The crisis didn't begin overnight. Decades ago, researchers noticed a subtle shift. In the 1970s, as industries boomed and urban life accelerated, something quietly fractured. The social fabric that once held families, communities, generations together. Suburbs replaced neighborhoods. Convenience replaced connection. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, older adults were pushed to the edge of relevance. Not out of cruelty, but out of efficiency. Progress demanded mobility, individualism, constant productivity. And so, the elderly, those who couldn't keep up, became less visible. It wasn't until 2008 that the World Health Organization formally recognized social isolation as a growing public health concern. And by then, the damage was well underway. The medical community began documenting strange symptoms in seniors who had no prior history of mental illness, delusions, emotional numbness, rapid physical deterioration. Not from disease, but from absence. The absence of voices, of eyes meeting theirs, of any confirmation that they still mattered. In Japan, they call it kodakushi, lonely death. Thousands are found in their homes months after passing, their TVs still glowing in empty rooms. In the US, emergency services report calls from seniors who fake medical symptoms just to hear another human voice. And yet, the warnings have gone largely unheard. As life expectancy increases, the number of people condemned to live those extra years alone grows exponentially. The future isn't full of active grandparents traveling the world and playing chess in parks. It's much darker, a silent epidemic growing behind closed doors. One where the mind breaks not from trauma, but from silence. And the scariest part? We built this world. We chose this path. So the question is, what makes you think you'll be the exception? Loneliness doesn't knock at the door. It seeps in, slowly, invisibly. A 2023 study by the National Institute on Aging found that prolonged social isolation increases the risk of premature death by 29%. But it's not just about dying early, it's about how people live before they die. Brain scans of chronically lonely individuals reveal significant shrinkage in the hippocampus, the region tied to memory and emotional regulation. That means not only do they feel worse, they begin to forget why they felt anything at all. Cortisol levels spike, sleep disappears, immune systems collapse. And here's the terrifying part: many don't even realize it's happening. The mind adapts in the worst way. Some begin hearing voices. Others develop full-body pain with no medical explanation. And for millions, the first true symptom of loneliness is death. In the UK, doctors now refer to it as the silent killer. In fact, England appointed a minister for loneliness in 2018, a desperate move to contain what was already spreading like smoke in a closed room. In the US, emergency departments see a rise in nonspecific complaints from seniors: fatigue, headaches, chest tightness. But no disease, no virus, just absence. And it doesn't just happen in rural areas or low-income communities. It's growing fastest in cities, in high-rises, in tech-connected homes where everything responds, except a human voice. Behind every clean sidewalk and friendly smile may live someone who hasn't had a conversation in weeks. We talk about climate disasters and AI revolutions, but no one's preparing for a world where emotional extinction comes first. So tell me, how often do you check on the ones you never hear from? Here's the truth no one talks about. Loneliness doesn't just affect the brain, it reprograms it. According to a 2022 meta-analysis published in Nature Neuroscience, chronic isolation can actually alter gene expression in the brain, turning on inflammatory pathways that accelerate aging by as much as 5 biological years. That means some people aren't just lonely, they're biologically older than their peers, simply because no one calls. But here's the real twist. New evidence suggests the brain begins to prefer loneliness after long exposure. Like addiction, the same reward circuits triggered by social connection become rewired to tolerate, and even crave, silence. One hypothesis gaining traction among neuroscientists is that long-term loneliness may cause the brain to enter a kind of shutdown mode, minimizing social pain by lowering empathy, dulling emotional response, and eventually, severing the need for others entirely. The mind protects itself by retreating permanently. But there's a darker implication. If we wait too long to reconnect, it might already be too late. The emotional damage may become irreversible. And then what's left? A generation of elders who are not only forgotten, but unreachable. Some scientists argue that chronic isolation could even mimic the early stages of Alzheimer's, meaning we may be misdiagnosing thousands. Others push back, warning that loneliness isn't a disease, it's a symptom of a sick society. Either way, the lines are blurring between what is biological and what is simply the cost of abandonment. And the question we must now ask is haunting. What if, by ignoring the lonely, we're creating a neurological extinction, one quiet home at a time? In the race to combat loneliness, science is trying to catch up, but not without controversy. Today, labs across the world are experimenting with digital solutions that sound like science fiction. From emotionally responsive AI companions to robotic pets that purr when touched, blink, and mimic affection. In Japan, lifelike androids are being tested in nursing homes, programmed to remember names, tell stories, and even give compliments. Some seniors, researchers say, form genuine emotional bonds with them. But what does it mean when the only warmth we feel comes from a machine? In the US, virtual reality is being introduced to recreate moments of connection, like holiday dinners, familiar places, even lost loved ones. Brain scans show that these simulated interactions can reduce cortisol levels, at least temporarily. Yet for many, the experience feels hollow. It tricks the body, one researcher said, but the soul knows. Meanwhile, scientists continue to study the biological footprint of isolation. Researchers at MIT have discovered that the brain releases dopamine, the same pleasure chemical triggered by food and sex, when we simply anticipate social contact. It means the hope of connection is sometimes more powerful than connection itself. And yet, technology hasn't solved the root problem. We're building tools to replace what used to be natural: eye contact, conversation, laughter. And each replacement, no matter how sophisticated, brings us further from the real thing. In trying to fix loneliness, are we just perfecting the illusion of presence while letting the truth decay behind screens and code? Can a robot really replace your daughter's voice? Or is that just a comfortable lie dressed as innovation? Some argue that this was inevitable, that modern life, with all its speed and noise, simply outgrew the old ways. They say it's not cruelty, it's evolution, a necessary shift, that in a world of infinite information, some people just fall through the cracks, but others see something far darker, a design flaw, or worse, a design choice. That progress, as we define it, feeds on disconnection. The more self-sufficient we become, the less we need each other. The more we optimize, the more we isolate. It's not just about forgotten seniors. It's about a system that taught us to value convenience over community. And now we're all paying the price. But there's a debate growing louder in scientific circles. Some theorists believe chronic loneliness isn't just a symptom of modern society, but a tool of control. That when people are cut off, emotionally numb, and mentally adrift, they're easier to pacify, easier to manipulate. One controversial study even suggests that large-scale loneliness can mirror the psychological effects of mass surveillance: fear, apathy, submission. Others disagree, blaming cultural decay, overworked families, economic pressure. It's not a conspiracy, they say. It's collapse. But maybe it's both. Maybe in a rush to automate, digitize, and move forward, we never asked who gets left behind. And if the price of progress is emotional extinction, is it really progress at all? We've built machines that can talk, but forgot how to listen. We extended lifespans, but emptied them of connection. So now we must ask, was the loneliness we fear something we created on purpose? The effects of loneliness are no longer just psychological, they're evolutionary. The changes triggered by decades of social isolation are starting to compound. From a biological standpoint, the damage is profound. As the elderly population continues to grow, so too does the burden on healthcare systems, already overwhelmed by chronic conditions linked to isolation, heart disease, strokes, depression. But the deeper risk? We are altering the very essence of human connection. In the future, we may find ourselves dealing with a new evolutionary race. People who can't understand emotional bonds, who have lost the ability to form deep, lasting relationships. A generation that thrives in isolation, disconnected from the empathy that once defined us. This shift could be the beginning of a global psychological collapse, one where, as a species, we've lost the core of what it means to be human. On a planet that already struggles with environmental and political instability, we are seeing how this breakdown of connection is eroding our very foundation. Economically, it's costing billions. Socially, it's leading to a fractured society. A future where entire generations might live their last years in hollow silence, never knowing what it feels like to truly belong. The most chilling realization? It's happening now. And the question remains, what happens when those who can no longer connect begin to outnumber those who still care? Are we creating a future where loneliness isn't just an experience, but the new normal? At this crossroads, we are forced to ask ourselves a question we've long avoided. Do we want to evolve, or do we risk losing it all? The truth is, we have already begun this transformation. We've built societies that thrive on efficiency, on progress, on individualism, but in doing so, we've unintentionally severed the ties that once bound us. We've let loneliness seep in, rewire our minds, and slowly hollow out the very essence of connection. The question now is whether we can undo the damage before it becomes irreversible. Can technology, once the source of this disconnection, be used to mend the rift it created? Or is this the price we must pay for our relentless march forward? We stand on the edge of a moral and technological divide. Do we continue to optimize, automate, and streamline at the expense of human connection? Or do we choose to slow down, to rebuild what was lost, and recognize that true progress cannot be measured in terms of data, but in the strength of our bonds? The choice isn't just about technology, it's about who we are and who we choose to become. Are we willing to evolve into a society where people are left behind, emotionally abandoned in their final years, or can we take a step back and rediscover what makes us human? It's not too late to change, but time is running out. Will we choose a future where loneliness is the rule or the exception? I want you to stop for a moment and think, how often do you really check on the people around you? Not just a quick text or a hurried phone call, but a real connection. How often do we stop to listen, to share a moment? I'm not just talking about the elderly, I'm talking about everyone. We've created a world that moves so fast, so relentlessly, that we often forget what truly matters. It's not just about the elderly being abandoned. It's about a generation, a society, that's slowly becoming disconnected. And here's the truth that's hardest to swallow. It could happen to you. You might not even notice when the silence creeps in. When the calls stop coming, when the faces grow unfamiliar, when you find yourself living in a house full of echoes. I know it sounds dramatic, but what if it isn't? What if this is the reality we've built, the world we've chosen, one disconnected step at a time? So I ask you, what can you do to change this? What can you do today to make sure you're not just another forgotten name in someone's phone, or worse, lost to time? This isn't a far-off possibility. It's happening now, and it could be you tomorrow. Take a moment to think about it. Reach out to someone. Share your thoughts. Share your fears. And then share this story. Because we can't afford to forget anymore. Have we already abandoned the future we promised ourselves?